All right, started recording, Coach. How you doing, man?
Oh, we're good.
Yeah,
Good, man. Good. It's been a
it's
while.
uh, it, it's been a while,
It
huh?
has. It
It's been
has.
a while, yeah. So, yeah, I started doing these podcasts. Like everybody and his dog is doing one, so why not me, right? And I think, look, I think I know people that have make interesting conversation and we have a history together. So I got on Facebook Messenger and said, "Hey, are you up for it?" And he said, "Yeah, man, let's do it." So
Yeah, let's go.
welcome, Coach John Allen,
Yeah.
Ball Coach JA, right? Is that on Twitter?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, good. So now I'm doing this thing with all my guests.
Okay.
Is where did we meet first? What is your recollection of that?
Well, I think we met in '03 at the national camp, brother, when I first came in the league with Berlin.
Yeah,
That's where I
it's
think we met.
yeah. That's my recollection too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 2003, which is 20 years ago, Coach.
Ah, man, I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
still seems like yesterday.
20 years.
It has been
Well,
20 years.
yeah. It
Oh,
doesn't
no.
seem that it was that long ago. That's for
No,
sure.
it
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't.
It's um,
Wow.
and then so Berlin, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's just go over that. So you come into the league, NFL Europe. I'm not sure where the camp was. I'm thinking it was in Frankfurt, the camp, because early on we did it in
Uh,
Frankfurt. And
no, it was in Tampa.
all
It was in
right,
Tampa.
it
Yeah.
was okay. So I actually thought that we did like a national camp, like in Frankfurt.
We did
Was that
one
after?
year. Yeah, that was after. One year I went to Scott. I came up to Scotland with you guys. We did a
All right.
national camp up in Scotland
Okay.
one summer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that was that was '04. That was the next year.
All right. All
That was
right.
the next summer.
So
Yeah.
national camp in Tampa before heading into our team camps.
Right, right.
Yeah. And then what happened?
Uh,
Because
Shoot, after
you're
that, that year I was with Berlin, and then the next year I came aboard with Bart and you guys at
yep,
Amsterdam for the next 3 seasons, and
three. Yeah.
we had a great time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then that last year in '07, I became the head coach of Berlin.
Yeah. The
Back
last.
yeah, the last year, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. 2007. When
2007.
they unplugged.
Uh,
Um, I remember we so the European staff and front office, they were all. I'm thinking it was also Frankfurt again. Everybody met in Frankfurt in big meeting,
yeah,
like 6 teams, all staff, like rooms full. And then the general manager, or he comes in, and I mean he made it short and sweet, man. Like, yeah, man, we're
hey, hey, dude,
calling it a day.
this is what I remember getting a phone call. No, not even that. Getting a letter. No, we had a head coach's call. We had a head coach's call that lasted about 10 minutes.
Hmm.
Then getting a letter with a number that we had to call the next morning, and that was it. That was it.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Nothing else.
like I said, short
Nothing
and
else.
sweet, man. And you know what? Uh, it was um it was surreal, right? You sitting
Yeah.
there, everybody, like all the teams together and people around you, and then he comes in, and I think there was a little bit of a sort of a rumor about stuff that could happen and all that kind of stuff, and then he just drops it. Boom, that's it.
Yeah.
And like there was this, like like there you can have no sound, and then like if there's a vacuum of no sound, like there's
Uh,
like absolute silence, and then
it
all of a
was
sudden there's this boom, like explosion,
it was awful,
everybody on the
man.
phone. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it was awful. And
yeah,
the unfortunate part about it, man, is like that year alone, um, and that was my first year as a head coach. But just having been in the league for 5 years and seeing the growth with the international
Mm,
program, the national program, and the guys that were the young kids that you guys recruited and developed,
mm.
that were then playing in '07. Like I
Yeah,
remember, I think I had Sam Gudicus who was playing right guard for me in Berlin. And I'm telling you right now, 1 or 2 more years, and he could have been a starter in the National Football League. He was
mm,
that good when I first, and that goes back to when I first got in the league in '03. And we all used to say like the linemen, that's where the difference was at. Were the big men. They were stiffer. They weren't as athletic as the American players. And just as you saw over time, D linemen were playing more. All, all of a sudden, O linemen, the young O linemen were starting to come through the pipeline. And
yeah,
it was just unfortunate, man, because a couple more years of that league and we
mm,
probably still be coaching in it right now because it would have been it's such a
yeah,
great feeder program,
yeah,
international. Like I think probably, we all heard the rumors, but I think it was so hard to believe because you look at the product on the field and you go, man, we're so close. We're so close to that
yeah,
vision Tagliabue had. Just
yeah,
so close.
yeah. Now you make a great point because, like, early on, there's kids playing in Europe and all over the world, and they just finding their way. Like
Yeah.
just like start playing football. It's like like helmet shoulder pads. Let's run into each other, right?
Yeah.
Not much knowledge, not much coaching, all that kind of stuff. And then over the years, keep chipping away, and you get guys that all of a sudden you got better athletes, and you got better coaching, and all of that keeps building. And ultimately you see now, like, the international pathway program the NFL has, that, what, I tell you that the thing started really with Tony Allen getting that
Absolutely.
program started and getting it off the ground, and the amount of hours that he put into this, and that's, I mean, I always say this too, like, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who came before us, helped us along the way, but um you know that program, that went places, right? And then as you have now, like this guys, like, you go like this, what is it, this tight end from Chile or something, like ex basketball guy that was like these athlete talented kids, like we have, I think, in Australia now we have 3 Aussies who were in the pathway program.
Okay.
Don't know if they're gonna make a team this year, but it's
Yeah.
like it's all growing, it's all
Yeah.
developing, and the better these athletes get, like, the better the chances will be. And um yeah, that was a special time because we had a lot of people invested in the growth and development of the game in Europe, and wanting to have give these opportunities to kids, and yeah, it's kind of, well, I guess it's evolved along the way to the international pathway program. So it's
Correct.
it's not like
Correct.
it ended everything, but it's very different from what used to be.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
So but then NFL Europe closes shop, and then you go back to college football. Is that right?
Yeah, man. So, I spent that fall out and so I just kind of traveled around and saw buddies, saw teams play, got to kind of be a fan a little bit that fall and ended up uh ended up at an FCS school in Albany, New York, that next spring in '08. And I'd always, because of where I lived in Pennsylvania, I always went to Penn State's camps every year. And
Mhm.
so that summer of '08, I'm at camp and just coaching around with the guys I knew and networking and just doing our thing. And next thing I know, guys are asking me from the staff, like, would you be interested in a player personnel job? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to work with Joe Paterno, right? So,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just one thing led to another, and I ended up at Penn State. And
Mm,
great opportunity. Was there 3 years, learned a lot. Um, just grew a lot. I think just watching him coach and the way he operated the program, and we had
mm,
success. I mean, shoot, my first year there, we go to the Rose Bowl, win the Big Ten championship. We're I don't know, 11-2, 12-1, 12-2, something like that. And The next year we almost duplicated, and just a great time. Just a
Yeah.
great time, and it finally came to a point where I wanted to get back on the field because at the time, unlike some of the rules now that are occurring, you couldn't coach necessarily. Um,
Yeah.
so, it just came to a point where I wanted to get back on the field, and he gave me some great advice, and I ended up becoming the head coach at Lock Haven University,
Mm,
where I lived.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I always ask with my guests too. Like build sort of a sequence of questions. There is like,
Yeah,
who do we know? Which coaches do we both know? Not necessarily the ones that we work with, but the ones that that we both know. And when you mention Lockhaven, then Nick Polk comes up, right?
Nick Pope. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
is
A
alma mater.
big influence of in your career.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's the one that he was my first head coach I worked for
yeah,
in the profession, and
yeah,
coached with him for what 4 years, and before he actually got into the NFL Europe League, and then he ended up eventually helping me getting to the league. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, he's been and we still talk to this day.
yeah.
He was kind of a really a guiding light, a mentor early on in my career.
Is interesting, and that's I would say because I think he's a player agent now, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he's a coach. He's a coach agent, mainly on the coaching side,
Oh,
not
okay,
so
all
much
right.
on the player side. But yeah,
Like
yep,
preparation type of thing for
correct,
combines,
correct.
that kind of
Yep.
thing. All right,
Mhm.
cool. Because that'd be definitely somebody to talk to as well. Like now, in terms of giving this away with him, is I met him in first time in '98,
Okay.
where I did an internship with the Amsterdam Admirals,
Yeah.
and he was around camp too, and and that's how we met for the first time. So
Okay.
it like it it is a coaching and American football is a very small world. It's unbelievable how the lines cross. Yeah.
It is. It is.
Mm.
It is, man.
But just going back to your experience with Coach Paterno is like, I mean, talking about coaching legends.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable. How many years did he end up coaching, being the head coach at Penn State?
I want to
Something
say
ridiculous, right?
40, 44 to 46 years in there.
That's
A long time.
that's insane. They're like,
Something that
yeah.
will not be probably will never be duplicated again.
Mm. Yeah, in today's world, coaches don't last that long.
No.
Like they don't have the patience if
No.
you're not winning, or
Yes.
something has to be very, very good. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're not staying hanging around.
The business side of it now has really taken over the
Mm,
profession.
mm,
It used to really be about great coaches, developing of the players, working your tail off and obviously winning games, but it was winning games by doing all of the other things, the hard work of development and
mm,
recruiting and really developing relationships. Now, it's a business. And,
mm,
in some of these conferences that are here, they're giving out, shelling out 50, $60 million a year to these institutions. you know, Presidents, they want to see results. ADs want to see results. They got to put people in the stands. And,
yeah.
so that's created a whole completely different deal now within the profession,
Yeah.
that's more business related. And that's the unfortunate part about it, because we came up, I know you did the same way. Just you were always taught, work hard, grind, learn from the guy in front of you, you know,
Mm,
really learn your craft, learn how to develop players, be detailed, be organized, all those things. And not so much now. I mean,
mm,
it's more some of the who knows X's and O's and who can draw cute things up on the board and who can
mm,
quote unquote recruit, which I still don't understand what that means right now, but because we all can recruit really well, but you know, it's a different deal right now. It's just a
mm,
different deal in
mm.
college football.
Yeah, look, maybe that's that's a whole different episode. Maybe
Oh, you can that can go all
how
day.
college recruiting works at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go all
So
day.
you went from college football to pro football, like so like 5 years in professional football, then go back to college football. How does college football differ from professional football?
You just you're doing a little less football with the players. It's catching up a little bit now, but you're doing a little bit less with the players from a football standpoint. You're doing more recruiting. Half of your job is going to be recruiting because you're pretty
Mm,
much doing that all year long, whether you're recruiting, still dealing with the players you just signed or recruiting the next class or even evaluating the class after that one.
yeah.
So you're constantly evaluating and recruiting and, assessing your needs. Then there's the development part. And in college football, development is huge, right? Um, Professional players typically, they're athletic. They have a skill set. You're just refining their skill set, right? College
Mm,
players, you're taking the good players and making them great, and you're taking the great ones and making them elite, right?
mm,
And so there's a lot of development involved, with the college players.
yeah.
Um, so there's just a lot more involved in college that can take you away from football itself. Where in the pros, it's all football. It's all about
Mm,
X's and O's, scheme. How can I
mm,
get this guy in the right place? Obviously, some evaluations for the draft, so you're always bringing in good players, but it's all about football. You know.
yeah. 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 Like, yeah, I remember. Look, the guys come in and they are who they are, and you fine tune them to the system, and you teach them the
Right.
system, and like go get it kind of thing, right? Yeah, and then obviously, like in the NFL, Europe especially, we basically had everybody one year, one season, right? That
One
was it.
season, right?
And then
Yeah.
there's some guys coming back,
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
if we're
Yeah.
lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
But and look in college, right? You coached various levels of college football as well. Is there like you know because when you have a kid come in, he's a freshman, right? How many has it changed where a freshman plays or sophomore or those kind of things?
Yeah. Now, in FBS now, freshmen can actually play. They can actually play in 4 games now, and
Right,
still have a red shirt. And that includes the bowl game. It didn't used to include the bowl game. It includes the bowl game now. So let's say kid plays 3 games during the regular season and you make it to a bowl game, he can play in the bowl game and still
right,
redshirt the next year. So some of those rules have really changed to help develop those young players sooner.
mm, yeah,
Um, and it's important now. It's even more important now because of the transfer portal stuff that has occurred over the last several years. That if you can get them if you can get them playing, right, and keep them occupied mentally and keep them focused on being in your program and not so much worried about, oh my God, I'm not playing because this guy's ahead of me and he's a junior and you know what, I need to go to this school, and if you can develop the right culture and you can keep them kind of focused on what you're doing in your program and in your organization, you got a chance to keep guys for 4 years, at least
yeah,
until they graduate. So, it's definitely help at the lower levels. Um, what you're dealing with the lower level is, the Division 2, let's say, because I'm most familiar with that, is a lot of freshmen aren't ready to play, right? They're
yeah,
not as talented enough as some of your freshmen are coming into major FBS programs. So
mm,
there is still that kind of development portion of Division 2, Division 3 football where you're developing that young guy until he can become a sophomore, junior, and then really get his feet wet and start playing and getting that experience. So
mm,
it's a little bit different once you kind of get into some of the lower levels. But
yeah,
transfer process has changed a lot of things,
yeah,
it's changed a lot, not some. It's changed a lot.
yeah.
Changed a lot of things.
Yeah, that's amazing how I don't. it's the evolution of college football. Evolution. You generally, you look at that as that being a good thing. You know, I don't know. I don't. I guess I don't know too much about it to have a real strong opinion. But it feels a little bit like like, oh, that's the grass is green over there. It has a
Oh,
bag on it. It looks like some green in the bag. I'm going over there. Like
bro. And the bad part about it, John, is so many of these kids, they think that, right? And then they get into the portal and they
mm,
leave their program, and all of a sudden they find out they got nowhere to go.
mm. And then you can't come back, right? Is that correct?
You could come back, but most times, if you when you've left that coach is
Yeah, the
bringing you
coach
back.
says, well, yeah,
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 he's
yeah.
moved on. There's some
Mm,
situations where kids end up back.
mm,
Um, but there's so many kids right now that are just sitting out there with no place to go. And
oh,
they'll end up, and now that helps the lower level schools because they'll end up having to play Division II, which is not bad. But a
mm,
guy that all of a sudden was, let's say, at a Miami of Ohio, a group of 5 FBS, all of a sudden he thought he was going to go to a P5 school, didn't have that. None of the group of fives wanted him. For some reason, the FCS he might end up at an FCS or a Division II school at the end of the day, somewhere he never even thought or imagined he would be
yeah.
at. So there's a lot of that going on, and it's kind of sad to see. Um, and then sometimes, look, it does help because there are kids that are in some programs that really shouldn't be in that program. They maybe
Mm,
should be playing FCS or playing Division II ball.
yeah.
So it helps from that standpoint as well. But I think the whole grass is greener on the other side. That's the major problem of the transfer portal right now.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Like back to coaches we both know.
Yeah.
Do you have any in mind that
Well,
you
I
come
mean,
across that way?
obviously we both work for Bart Andrews, who's coaching in USFL right now.
Yeah, the
You know,
USFL. Yeah.
and taking his team back to a championship, taking his team to a championship last year, even though
Of
it
course.
fell
Yeah.
short, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
man, Jeff Rombo, we talked about a little while ago. He's down in Hawaii. Who else? Let's talk about who else is out there. Keep going, man. Keep going.
Well, look, here's the interesting. I don't know how much you keep up with football in Europe. Like I don't even know that's
Yeah.
a thing, really, right? But like there is a new league, the ELF, the European League of Football,
Yes.
right? Who look, a mutual friend of ours started or is the commissioner of, right? Patrick Asumi, right?
Oh, it's
So
Patrick. You know what? I didn't know he was. I didn't know he was the commissioner
the
of that league.
commissioner, yeah,
I did not
yeah,
know that. I might have to hit him up. I
yeah.
wouldn't mind coming
Well,
back over.
here's the thing: is so we've worked with somebody or two
Yeah.
guys, three guys.
Okay.
Three guys in the NFL Europe who are in that league right now,
Well,
and
I
the
know
head coach
Yogi.
for run, huh?
Yogi's
Yeah,
over there. Correct.
yeah. He's in Hamburg, right?
Yes.
Then and Ryan Fire, the head coach of Ryan Fire is Jim Tomsula.
Is Jim over there?
Yeah. So this will be his second year. Yep.
Okay.
Then his DC at Ryan Fire. Guess who that is?
Oh, geez.
Well, easy. Jim Tomsula, NFL Europe. We worked
Oh,
with him.
I got it. I know. I know who it
All right.
is.
I'll take the pain away. Richard Kent.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got me on Richard. I was thinking somebody else.
All right. No, so Richard was with another team, DC with another team, and then this year he's going to Ryan
Going
Fire.
with Tom Sula.
So there's three
Yeah.
guys who were in the NFL Europe,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so this new league they have some of the names of the NFL Europe teams.
Yeah.
So there's a Frankfurt Galaxy,
Right.
Ryan Fire, Cologne Centurions, Berlin Thunder.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Hamburg Sea Devils is there. Is there another ex-NFL Europe team? Barcelona Dragons.
Okay.
Barcelona Dragons there.
Okay.
So they started. Look, it's a different setup than the usual club teams in Europe, but that's where a bunch of guys that we worked with are now as
I
well.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I remember when Yogi took the job, he actually
mm.
hit me up. He's like, Coach, you need to come on over, come back on
What do you
over and
think?
coach. It's like I
Yeah.
would, you know what? I would love to come back to Europe, man. I really
Mm.
would. I was talking the other day, and it was like such a great experience, man. Just such a great experience we had. Just amazing time, amazing people, coaching ball, right?
Mm.
And I know one of the questions you and I talked about was like, what's kind of one of the best staffs or the fondest moments. And I'll be honest with you, is that Amsterdam team, those
Mm.
3 years, especially, '04 and '05 and '06, when we won it in '05 and went back in '06 and we kind of limped in. We were banged up and we kind of limped in, which was
Yeah.
unfortunate because we had one of the best offenses going that
Yeah.
year. I mean,
Yeah.
we were putting up numbers,
Yeah.
and I remember the wideouts got banged up at the end, and we just kind of limped. Jabron got hurt, and
Yeah.
we just kind of limped in. But those were
Mm.
some great moments, man. Some great moments.
And I just remember Frankfurt Galaxy running all
Oh,
over us.
I know, I
My
know,
God.
I know, I know.
Look,
And Mike Jones is so Mike is the receiver coach with the Birmingham Stallions of the USFL.
all right. Is
With
he
Skip
really? All
Holtz,
right.
and I worked for Skip at Louisiana Tech a couple of years
Yes.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mike's still doing his thing as well.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
But yeah, they ran it. And he did. I mean, look, they did what they had to do,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
that's it. Of course. Yeah. Like
They did what
it's.
they had to
I mean,
do.
we just we couldn't move the ball and we
No, we
couldn't stop
couldn't
the
do it.
run. I
No,
mean,
bro.
that's the perfect recipe for disaster.
Yeah, we couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it hurt because that first half of the season, man.
Uh,
We're 5-0. I remember playing Tom Sula back to back, right? I think it was weeks
mm,
4 and 5. We played them back to back, dogfight and beat them, right? And we're 5-0 and we're rolling. We're rolling. And then
mm.
we go play. I think we go play Hamburg, and Jabron gets rolled up on his ankles.
Hamburg. Yep.
Finishes the game,
Yep.
and we win.
Yeah.
But that was the last game he played. We win 6, and then we just limped in. I think we won one more after that, and we limped in at 7-3, and
Was
we just limped in, man.
was Yogi at Hamburg then as
Yogi was
well?
at Hamburg.
I remember that
He was.
year they had a great defensive line at
That was
Hamburg.
that was the year. I think it was
Oh,
that year. It was that year, I believe.
yeah.
Great
See,
defensive line.
Gibran did his ankle over there. Yeah,
Yes, at
and
their
you
place.
you finished the game,
Yes.
but that defensive lineman, they were just after it.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
they were good. I remember one of the kids. Can't remember his name. I think he ended up playing with he played in the league for a minute.
That wouldn't surprise me.
For a minute. They were good. They were so
Mm.
good. They were so good up front.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Like, so you mentioned Skip Holtz and Louisiana Tech, and like obviously I had a look at you had Coach Yearbook now, I understand, Delaware State.
Yeah.
So you've coached wide receivers, quarterbacks, offensive coordinator, a couple of years as a head coach in college and in the pros. Look, where's your sort of, not everybody wants to be a head coach. That's not everybody. So like, I had that early on when I started coaching. I was like, I just need to focus on coaching defense, man. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else.
Right.
But and after a while, you think, no, look, I want that too. I want to be the head coach, to be in charge of everything. Run it the way you want to run it. So your next job, right? You can be a wide receiver coach at Penn State. You can be offensive coordinator at LaTech, right? or you can be a head coach going back to Lock Haven. How do you see that? What are you looking
Yeah. You're asking me now?
Yeah, put you on the spot.
Probably not the best time to ask me that now.
All right. Why is that?
I'll be honest with you now. I would almost say being the head coach at Lock Haven. And I tell you why. It's that level of play is still the essence of coaching and development, and just is ball. It's football. It's football.
Yeah.
I wanted to be at the FBS level so bad as a position coach, and wanted to, I know I can coach. And I wanted to coach all these top kids, and I wanted to do that. I've kind of got a little sour taste in my mouth because, for the first time in my career, I've been bitten by the business side of major college athletics. I've been fired before. I've been on staffs that have been fired before. That happens, right?
Sure.
But I got caught on a business decision, nothing to do with coaching or anything else, and it's kind of put a little sour taste in my mouth. You know what I mean? And it's just past coaching. It's past what we all got into this profession for. And I mean, I'll be honest, probably Lock Haven. It just would go back to just the essence of why we got into the profession, and the fact that we could really develop kids and, have an impact on their lives, and see real results, see a kid really grow and get excited about his success, and see a team grow and get excited about their success. I mean, when I was there as a head coach at that particular institution, I mean, John, I took the program over. They went 3 years. They hadn't won a game. 3 years, over. 3 years, and they were over. And, our first year, we had a chance to win in our first game, and we threw a pick going in to win it, and which would have changed the whole dynamic of the place. And, we went 0-11 my first year. But the kids just kept chipping away. I went and recruited a bunch of young kids, and they worked, man. They kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. The next year, we broke through. We won. We lost a heartbreaker. Last play of the game, we lost a heartbreaker, and then we finally broke through and beat Cheney University, and they got their first win in freaking 45 years. And just to see not only the players, the fans, the students, the faculty members, the university president. I mean, just to see the excitement of everybody. Oh my! It was like us winning the World Bowl, dude. It was just the same feeling that we all had when we finally won that World Bowl, and just the euphoria of it all, and that's the essence of the game, right? And that's why we do it ultimately. And I think, right now, when you ask me, it's hard. It's hard to chase that dream, because the business side has just impacted it so much that you're not in control anymore. Your experiences really don't matter like it used to matter. You really have to just know somebody and be a part of something that's moving in a direction, and hold on and just ride the wave. And it's a little bit more now just out of your control. I know some good coaches right now that are out of football, or having to drop from a major FBS program down to FCS program, because they just can't get back in for whatever reason. It's not because of coaching. It's just not because of their experiences. So, I think that's a great question. That was a great question.
Well, look, I always said that. Look, obviously, like, man, it wouldn't be nice to coach in the NFL, right?
Oh, be
not
awesome.
in the little brother or little sister, the NFL Europe, no, in the big leagues, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like I like coaching football. I like helping guys, become better at the game. I
Yeah.
like guys getting better at being good men and moving on, in life through football. That's what I like.
Yeah.
So if the level is not that high, where you go, "Oh, man, the NFL, then if you can do it somewhat the right way, that's my minimum requirement.
Right.
Like as in somewhat doing it the right way. And then I like the building aspect of something, like you can go somewhere where they're successful and you can build it to a point where they reach ultimate success, or
Mhm.
they've been really, for somewhat, and you go, you
Right.
know what?
Right.
If you just win 2-3 games, that changes lives, right?
Correct.
So those people call it challenges, like, but those type of things, that building aspect, I like about it too. So but it's yeah, the lure of being on TV, big time stadiums, what is it, 110,000 people at Penn State?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
that or coaching at a school where it's 5,000, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, the zone read play will be the same. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like
You're
it's,
right.
it'll be the same. The atmosphere or the prestige or your bank account, they might
Yeah.
all change. But
Yeah.
the coaching and trying to create better men on and off the field, that's got to that's a driving part of for me as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'll try to keep it not as heavy in the next few quarters.
It's all good. It's all
Have you
good.
have you thought of your coaching legacy? Do you think of that? Do or legacy, or how do you want people to remember you, or like that area?
Personally, yeah. Personally, I just everywhere I've been, I've always had the mindset, just to be the best at where I'm at. People's like, just be where your feet are at, right? That's kind of the
Mhm.
terminology people say all the time. And I just want, one day when I'm finished and this is over, like, did I make an impact? You know,
Mhm.
um, did I make an impact? In some way, did I help make somebody's career better? Did I impact them as a person? Did they just learn something that they were able to carry with them for life? You know what I mean? And that's it. That's it for me. I'm good. Um, the rest of it, I've always tried to, put emphasis on winning, but I've always learned that if you develop the player and you do the right things and you work your tail off, you'll win games. You'll find winning. Winning's hard to do. It's not easy, but you'll find it, right? You'll find success. Um, so I've always just really tried to do my best at just developing men,
Mhm.
um, and trying to somehow, hopefully, positively impact their lives. And so
Yeah,
that's a big thing for me.
yeah. No, look, I'm very similar in my philosophy to that. Like it's if you ask me what weighs more for me, like, and then it's the development of men over winning. But if you do the things right to develop them as players, right, then like you said, at some point, and that's where, if you get the time, then winning also comes. But
Right.
we live in a society where shit has to happen yesterday.
Yes.
What are you talking about in 2 years from now?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
No
that's
doubt.
yeah, it's a tough, like, it's a tough job.
It, it,
Somebody has
it
to do
has
it.
definitely become that.
Yeah. So a few years ago, and I'll preface this with I have started writing a book, and
Okay.
I came up with this idea of the learning tree. You know how have the coaching tree, as in the Andy Reid's has these
Right.
coordinators who are now
Right.
coaches and that kind of
Right.
stuff. And I said, look, no, no, it's the learning tree. The learning tree is who have I worked with and learned from, but not just that, right? It's we've been driving to practice and camp, and we've had conversations, and and see you in action. I've learned from you, but you have learned from Nick Polk, like that, and Nick Polk has learned from. So if you look at the learning tree can be really big, right? And
Right.
it's I mean, let's face it, I've been very fortunate to work with a ton of great people over in my career, but also specifically in the NFL Europe, where new guys come in, where you work with other coaches from other teams in national camps, in Tampa or in Europe. Like one of the great names that come to mind, and I mean, I haven't worked with him that much, but big impact, Bob Valicenti.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
he was in a local camp. He was the DC and he coaching linebackers, and you go like, now that's something that made a huge impact.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you think of that way, right? Can you come up with some names in your learning tree that you can
Yeah. I
elaborate
mean,
on?
guys that pretty much, most of the places I've been, John, I've learned something. Like starting off with Nick Paul, right? Now I go back. Let me go back further. My college head coach, Rip Shear, who coached JMU, Memphis. He coached in the National Football League. He's just been in the college ranks and in the pro ranks for years, right? He was my college coach. Now, a lot of the things that just from a philosophical standpoint, the discipline of it all, how we work in the off season, um, how we have to work together, the one fail, when one fail, all fail kind of mentality. I learned that from him. And then moving on to Nick Polk, who was on his staff at one point, moving on to Nick, who were influenced by others. Um, he taught me how to really be detailed in what I was doing from a football standpoint, not just coaching part of it, but the organizational part of it. I mean, he put me in positions where I learned the different things off the field from an organizational, how to put player policy manuals together, how to put just fundraising stuff together, like the behind the scenes things and things that I really didn't want to do, right? That you go, I don't
Mhm.
really want to do that. He made me
Yeah.
do it, right? And then was a stickler on the detail and how it looked and was it proofed and is it right, And so you learn those things. And then shoot, coming into NFL Europe with Peter Voss, who's impacted by Lou Holtz, okay?
Yeah.
And how we win, that whole philosophy, which I still use today, and if I become a head coach, I will continue to use that, right? Um, and just how to be a professional coach. Like he tell me little things in practice, like okay, so like the combine, the combine just came through Indianapolis, and receivers, and you do that drill where you run across the field and you catch the ball and you drop it, you catch the ball and you drop and you catch. I did that in practice. I'm thinking, oh, that's cool. I've seen it before. I think this would be really cool to do as a drill. Tap me on my shoulder. Coach Allen, do you really think it's good for your players to drop the football purposely? Like, really? And I never thought about it. You know what I mean, John? It's like little something little. Not even, it was like little. Never thought
Mhm.
about it. I said,
Mhm.
you know what, coach? You're right. Never did that drill again.
Mhm.
Never done that drill. And anything drill wise that I do now today, I always go back and I think about, is this a realistic drill?
Mhm.
Am I going to train what I'm trying to specifically train, or will I create a bad habit?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I continually think about that today because
Yeah.
of Peter Voss, and
Yeah.
then Bart Anderson. Shoot, man. Bart, I mean, be quite frankly, Bart is who taught me the pro passing game. I mean, he
Mm,
taught me the modern day pro passing game. And
mm,
we worked on it together, and it opened my mind up to, how you coach quarterbacks and how you approach studying the game, from the passing standpoint. And that's just where we just and we I mean, we were like this, this. I mean, Bart and I were like tight, like I was on his hip everywhere. And
mm,
that allowed me to become a head coach at Berlin. And not only just that, but just how Bart treated us as coaches, and how tight, and again, those moments in time, how tight that staff was, man. Just how tight we all were is because of Bart, and how easygoing he was, and how open and connected he was to all of us. And I carried that to when I became a head coach at Berlin, and I carried that to when I became a head coach at Lockhaven University. And I tried to continue to mold my staff in that way and be connected and close to our staff. Um, and then obviously working for Joe Paterno. I mean, geez, dude, like you could write a book, right? Go
yeah.
put it out there on them, right? It's just, again, just how you treat your players, how consistent you are with your message. Um, he had a standard that he never relented on throughout the course of his 40 some years.
Mm,
And it worked. He averaged 10 games a year and wins a year. Okay. Um, and the fact that he still was sharp, and he still was in tune to what was going on in practice, and he's in tune to what was going on defense and on offense and in special teams, and just very in tune to understanding it. Yeah, we needed great players in the program, right? But you got to take the right players. And if you bring in too many of those borderline type kids, well, they're not going to gravitate to the guys in your program that are leaders. They're going to gravitate to each other. And if you
mm,
get a bunch of that, right, then all of a sudden you start to insert a cancer within your culture that you don't want. He was
mm,
very smart and in tune to that. And remember that to this day.
mm,
And man, then just moving on to Bobby Wilder at Old Dominion, and Skip Holtz, son of Blue Holtz, right? And continuing that same philosophy that Peter Voss had introduced to me, being a part of his staff, continued when I was with Skip Holtz at Louisiana Tech. And um, so, I've been impacted by a lot of really, really, really good coaches, man, over the years. And I've been very blessed in that. I've been very, very blessed in that. And I just, I've tried to take something from everybody, right, and kind of make it, part of my own philosophy, understanding that I can't be them, right? I have to be who I am. But there's always things that we all can take that makes sense for the individual, and we make it a part of who we are.
yeah. Yeah, like sometimes you hear coach said, I'm stealing this of this guy and steal. I don't necessarily call it stealing.
No,
You're
no,
coaches are, they're very willing always to share their
yeah,
knowledge, right? So it's not a stealing bit. It's just, you're learning. That's what I mean. Like you're
right,
learning from all these guys, and um if you look at, the pros and cons from every coach, you
right,
learn this about, like, I really like that. And if this guy's like, like, that's not his strengths, but, like, um I see how that works for him, but it might not work for me. And like, it's a work in progress. And when you talk about somebody like Coach Paterno, when he has so much experience, he's made every mistake in the book, right? And
hmm,
therefore he has learned how it works for him and what he wants to do, right?
right.
That's ultimately, yeah, that's what experience is, right?
That's it.
Uh,
That's it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I've learned I've made so many mistakes and I've learned from them. That's what the experience does. Like obviously, if you never learn, yeah, that becomes really hard.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
That's a
that
problem.
is a problem. Yeah. So, in terms of coaching, right? So, for example, I coached with Bart on offense for 2 years, right? So I had a very simple offensive philosophy and stuff before that, and like you said, look, you learn the pro passing game from. Look, he's a freaking wizard when it comes down to throwing the football, right?
Right.
So I learned that, and I kept that system of play calling. Now, this was before you. He had his way of calling plays was a three-digit number at first, and then he changed it to his like what I call code words, right? So
Right.
it's a formation, and then it's just one
Concept.
word,
Yep.
left and right, or concept for everything. It is has that changed for you? Like what system is now yours? Is it what it always was?
I mean, I've been now since NFL Europe. I've been in a number of systems. I've been in the air raid. I've been in Skip's system, which is a lot different than most. It's name and numbers. It's concepts and then concepts that are attached to numbers. And then here just at UConn, I was actually back in a West Coast offense.
Right.
A modern day West Coast offense, not as much terminology, but it could get a little bit wordy. But numbers for pass protections, names for concepts based into families so that the kids could kind of learn it easier.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gone full circle with all of that. So I'm kind of back to where I was when I learned it with Bart. Bart was big in concept terms. We didn't necessarily put it into families, but stick was stick, and Hank was Hank, and so all go was all go, So we had terminology that I'm now kind of back full circle where I'm kind of back into that same kind of West Coast type terminology and learning again. But it's definitely been a journey because I've been in a number of places now that I was in somebody else's system, so it was a little bit different for different periods.
Do you still have like your own playbook that you work on, or is that too hard when you just keep going through systems in somebody else's book?
What I've done now, I did, and I still have that playbook. I do. I still have my playbook and basically it was kind of extended from what we did in Amsterdam. I kind of extended it, just so we could do, because going back to college, I just felt like there are going to be times where we could run 21 personnel runs, where we could get back into 12 personnel stuff. Not that we didn't do it in NFL year, we just didn't do it a lot at Amsterdam, right? So I wanted to make sure that the playbook was well-rounded, that no matter what that personnel we had that year, we had an offense that could adapt to it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of back to that, but I love what we did in this last system. So that's kind of now where I'm at, where I've settled in at from a playbook standpoint and a system standpoint. Because that goes back to the roots of kind of what I believe and how I like to call things and how we do protections and all that stuff. So I've kind of settled into that.
Yeah. The where I don't know which year it was. Might have been before you came to Amsterdam. Was Danny Werfel came to camp.
Okay.
And he was with Bart at Ryan Fire. And then he came to camp and he was at Chicago. And they ran a West Coast offense. He goes, Bart, man, look, your system was so great. Like
right.
In the West Coast, right? He like there was like this, you had to breathe like 2 or 3 times to finish the sentence.
It's awful.
I I don't understand. Like you basically, all right, come together and you basically tell everybody what to do with a word, right? And
Correct.
I go like, I understand the millions of variations of the plays and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going like, there must be a better way to do that.
There
Because
is.
he said like in camp, he said, look, I'm lying in my bed and I'm just verbalizing calls over and over just to spit it out.
Yeah. That's
That puts all the pressure on the guy that has the most pressure, has the most difficult job in football, and you put that on him as well. And I'm going,
right.
look, of course it works because like lots of teams still do
Yeah.
run that system, but
Right.
I like. And he was just lying in bed and just over and over repeating the calls over and over and over and over and over. And I'm like, man, and like he said, like, you go flush right, 63, 660, 633 or whatever, and that was
Yeah.
the play.
That was it. Bart, that was the great thing about Bart, right? Bart wanted less. He
Yeah.
didn't want all these work. He wanted, and I talked to him 2 weeks ago, and he was like, still got it condensed, keeping it short. Like he wants less, like not all that other, just less.
Yeah.
And you can do it. You can do that. You can do it. You really can. And that's the struggle. Like when we came from NFL, you were going back to college. It's like, people couldn't believe that we could put a team together in 3 weeks in camp and then go play a season and do the things that we did, within the season, right?
Yep.
And all of a sudden you give them your terminology, like that's it. Like, yeah. What else is there? Like, I mean, guys do have to learn something, right?
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, they got to learn something. We can't tell them how to do everything in life. So, players got to be able to learn certain things, and that just to me has always become important. And we've challenged our players to do that. And college kids can learn. They actually do learn. So you don't really have to extend a whole lot of things into a play call. Now, again, the National Football League, they might call something on Sunday that they put in 4 weeks prior to that and hadn't run it since, right? So I get it. I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that for college. You don't.
Yeah. So my first 2 years in offense, what the biggest thing that I had trouble with was 65 million different formations. That's like, oh my God, I just like seriously, and it leads me to my sort of next topic that we can talk about here is like, if you want to talk about, like a couple favorite formations or pass plays or run plays that you have, why you call them or when you call them, what you like about it, that kind of thing.
Dude, I've gone the gamut and offenses, but I will say this: favorite formations. Tight end trips.
Right.
Love it, because it's one of those formations that, from a defensive standpoint, do you play the run on the tight end nub side, or do you play coverage on the 3 receiver side? And it helps almost balance the defense up. It's one of those formations. It's like also going formation into the boundary, whatever that may be. It might be, tight end trips to the boundary, whatever. But formation to the boundary is a problem for a lot of defensive coordinators. It either balances them up, or all of a sudden they put everybody over there and you got one-on-one out to the field. Yeah. And those are such really good formation I love. The other one I love is, and we did a lot of, and it goes back to my days with Bard and NFL Europe and us at Amsterdam, is the tight end wing with the slot receivers. I still love that formation. I just think it's 2 by
2 by 2.
2 by 2. And
Oh yeah,
tight end with the tight end wing, 12 personnel.
Oh, okay, 12. Yeah.
Yep, with 2 receivers to the slot. And
Yeah.
it just, again, it's one of those things it balances you up defensively, right?
Mm.
You either got heavy run possibly to the boundary. In those days, we were always in the middle of the field because of the NFL hashes, but it's just, I think those are just great formations to be in. And then what I've gotten into now, and what I really have kind of getting into a little bit more, we did it a little bit when I was at Old Dominion, is our duo scheme and running duo with the RPO system, whether it be man beaters, whether it be RPO zone beaters. Like, we were very, very good at Old Dominion in 18 running that stuff. And then we started doing a little bit here, well, at UConn this past year, in the system I was just in. And kind of getting into that RPO world, that first level, second level, and even some third level type stuff, is something that I've kind of really have enjoyed learning, and
Mm.
I want to continue to kind of watch and observe and kind of break down, and kind of you see how much you can create on it. But it's really, really good stuff. I mean, it's obviously tough. It's tough on people, and I love
When I,
duo because it's hard ball running.
yeah.
Now your O line goes back to when we ran gut, back in the day at Amsterdam. It just, when you were able to get two hard ball double teams and you can get movement at the point of attack and your back can be patient and just press, 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 press. And he's either going to hit door one, door two, or door three. And, I love that, and
Mm.
it's tough when you get good up front and you got a really good patient back, like we had Jared Payton, right? And they were so good at that, right? He and
Yeah.
Jonathan Smith, they were so good at that. And those are the things that kind of come full circle that I like. I like a lot.
To go back on your RPO stuff there for a sec, is when that RPO first sort of became popular, I'm going like, they're gonna have to change some rules here, man. Look, you can't, how is it? How is it there has to be some rule changes. You can't.
Well, they did put a 2 yard. It's supposed to be three, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's more two.
Mm.
Um, in college, where that's become a problem, because it did in the SEC when it first. I mean, I watched film where guys were running curls at 12,
Mm.
and they were and throwing the curl at 12 yards. Like, come on, guy. I mean, the dang center is up on the Mike linebacker at 4 yards. Like that,
Mm.
how is that fair? That isn't fair to the defense. That's
No,
not going to work. So they
no.
did. They started putting some of those rules in. And shoot, we got called this year on a couple that they were ridiculous calls. I'm an offensive coach, right? They were ridiculous calls, but they're mindful of it. But it's tough. It's when you can get it right, and again, when you put it together where you understand what you're trying to get done. Like, are you trying to attack the first level? Or are you really trying to get into that second level when they're trying to add a safety down, especially weak, and you're running glances in behind them and that kind of thing? And, or stop routes outside, which is what we did at LaTech. Like, that's when it gets really fun. You do have to have answers. It's not as easy as we make it look sometimes. D coordinators are starting to get pretty good at giving you different looks, and then post snap changing the look.
Yeah.
So your quarterback's got to be smart, or put you where they're giving you an RPO look and bringing pressure away from you. Well, you still got to be responsible. Somebody's got to be responsible for that. So it just kind of adds another level. Are you throwing a bubble screen or a key screen out there? Are you checking the play and just getting the run going? Are you telling the quarterback, hey, hand it and go? Like, all those things. Are you throwing RPOs to his vision, or are you making him peek backside away from his vision, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the things that you're trying to do? And
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you watch the college game, I think sometimes you see some things that you go, ooh, I'm not sure I run that. I'm not sure I do it that way. Your quarterback's getting hit. It's
And yeah.
really, I mean, and you're throwing an RPO off an edge guy that's 6'4", 230 that's a rush in and he's coming barreling down on you. No, I like closing edges. I don't want to put a guy in his face. That's not the point, in my opinion, of the RPO. But there's still people that do it.
Sure.
And shoot, I watched Wake Forest. We had a lot of crossover games with Wake Forest this year, and they do that. I mean, he's riding that thing all the way in there, and there's hands and bodies all around, and my man's firing away. And I'm like, whoo, I'm not sure we do that. So,
how about the so just to drop back or quick game, favorite route combinations that you like go to?
Yeah, quick game. I still love the sticks. I've gotten into, where I was at this year. We had a number of spacing concepts. I still love spacing. We did spacing with Bart back in the day as well. I still love the spacing concepts because you can change formations up. It's a real easy read for the quarterback. I mean, it's really a scan 1, 2, 3 coming on across. So I still love those. When it comes to the vertical game now, I'm still in the mindset that you have to vertically challenge people. I think you have to. I think you have to. Defensive coordinators need to know you're willing to throw the ball down the field. I mean, obviously, you got to have some guys on the outside that can make some plays. I'm not of the belief anymore that you got to throw it 44 yards down the field on the red line with a high angle throw anymore. I'm not of that mindset. I think, and I really gained this knowledge being at Old Dominion and having that experience there, is we were really good at throwing that 20-yard back shoulder fade. Guys on open, corners playing over the top, and the quarterback doing a great job of throwing them on the back shoulder. Not a hard ball, nice, easy 2-ball, letting the receiver open his hips. And we did such a great job of that year. I mean, shoot, that's why we had 2 1,000-yard receivers in the same year. They kill people. And then you start adding little stop routes off of that, right? They want to play press and pressing them off and letting those big bodies bang them and then pop back and letting the quarterback throw to a spot. So that's kind of where my mentality has changed over the years. Instead of being that perfect, ball's got to be in this spot at this angle at this. It's playing football. It's teaching your quarterbacks throw away from leverage, right? DB sitting on the inside, throw the receiver open outside, right? Like there's certain things that become a little bit more common sense, and you see it in the National Football League. So all you got to do is watch Aaron Rodgers any other week. Like that's what he does. He plays the game, right? And he has the ability, obviously, in the God-given talent to be able to make some of those throws that he makes, but he plays the game. And that's what I love about football, and that's how I would like to coach, the guys, whether it be receivers or quarterbacks. That's how I like to coach them. Like, let's play the game. Let's do. It goes back to when we came up, right? Take what the defense is going to give you. They want to play over the top, throw him back shoulder. If he wants to play underneath, throw him over the top outside. Receiver, hold the line. Like all those little detailed things that we all talk about, and not making it into a game of robots, right? Not having a bunch of people, you got to run to this point and turn here and do this and open. No, you still got to throw it. No, play the game.
Is that with the throwing to a spot and that kind of stuff, is that a little bit of your the air raid influence into your thinking?
I you know what, I gotta say yes. I've been a little bit influenced by that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I always, and I've thought this for a long time, is that take what the defense gives you. That's what I will tell any offense coordinator I'm working with. Take what the defense is giving you and throw the ball where the defender isn't. That's what you said, like away from leverage. And that is the game. That if you want to throw the ball, that is the game. Why would you want to put it somewhere where there's a defender in position? So that doesn't make any sense, right? So, and it goes a little bit, Miles Davis, run and shoot. Mm-hmm. That was that whole thing too, right? Where he just, and I read the books and everything, and actually I've spent a fair bit of time in Miles Davis. When I spent time in Hawaii when Jeff Reinbold was there.
Yeah.
And we had talked about that. Mm-hmm. But so there was a guy before Miles Davis. It was a high school coach who sort of created a concept as my kids are not athletic enough and this and that, and he boiled it down to, and this is the way I remember it anyway, but boiled it down to what you said. Let's just play a game here, and you just run to a spot where I can throw you the ball and you can catch it. And as football coaches, we like to make stuff complicated, but that's ultimately what a passing game is, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and you need an Aaron Rodgers who can put it where he wants to put it. Like he throws the balls like he would just put it in your hands right there.
Yeah. I mean,
not
he
everybody
makes it
can do
super
that.
easy. Yeah, he makes it super. He makes it like we can all go out there and do it, right?
Yeah.
But it really is. It's like you're saying though. It really is kind of that simple. We all have a bunch of pass concepts, right? You got concepts that are coverage beaters. You got concepts that are scan reads. There are concepts that are pure progressions. There are concepts that are quick games, right? Get the ball out of your hands, read one guy, and either he moves, you hit it there, he stays, you throw it out there. Like we have all of that, but it boils down to how do you teach the receiver to adjust when certain things aren't like it's drawn up on the board, and how do you coach the quarterback to adjust when things aren't drawn exactly how it is on the board, and putting those two guys on the same page that works within your system, that then becomes what Aaron Rodgers does. That's what we see every weekend when we watch a guy like that, or any of those NFL quarterbacks, because they're all talented. I mean, we all make a joke as fans, like, this guy isn't as good as this guy. But at the end of the day, we would all take any one of those in any program that we would coach, right? And would love for them to be our quarterback any day. So, they're talented. They're the best of the best, and they do make it look really, really easy.
Yeah. Like when you mentioned landmarks and yards and steps and stuff, and I remember that with, I think, looking at Bart's system. I compare that with the air raid, and doing the same thing, but I think Bart was more like, I want you to be at that spot right there. It's going to take you days, many steps to be at that depth, to be over here, 2 yards inside the numbers or whatever that it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the air raid is a little bit more fluid, where yes, we want to be over here a little bit, but you know what, you just drift to the open space.
Yes.
That's kind of sort of the look. Is there an NFL team that what's his face, Kingsbury, right?
Yeah,
ex-Cologne Centurion quarterback. It wasn't quite the air raid what he did in Arizona, was it?
It was a little bit of both. He implemented both, pro concepts and some air raid stuff. Yes.
Because I remember, back in the day, it was like this, the run and shoot. Yeah, you can't do that in the NFL, right? There was, the option game, you can't do that in the NFL. Zone read, you can't do that in the NFL.
Right.
But we see
Everybody's
stuff.
doing it. Yeah.
We see stuff creeping in all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, and look, I'm sure. I remember, what was his name, the Hall of Fame defensive end from the Dallas Cowboys, who on that zone read play, he broke his ankles almost, like famous, like back in the day, you thought, well, these defensive ends are gonna kill a quarterback if he's pulling in, all that kind of stuff, but they made it so hard to, they couldn't tee off, and these things are in the game right now in the NFL, so
big time.
I think it's always the game will always evolve and find ways to implement certain aspects of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next thing here is I want to talk about is so you had the experience of helping developing European and Japanese and Mexican players, right, in the NFL Europe.
Right.
And you've been there for 5 years. You see the evolution of those players in those 5 years. A big thing is now, like, we're trying to get these Australian kids to play high school and college football, right?
Right.
If your next job, what does an Aussie kid have to do, be able to do? How can we make that process easier for him to get to college? Now, process, I mean, not just, here's my, my high school grades and all that, but like, what are you looking for? What are some, tips and tools that Aussie kids can look at and you're like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you today, it's not just the film anymore. I would say obviously, finding a way to get film to coaches, you know, um, finding a way to get enough movement within that film to show that they have some skills, a skill set, no matter what the position is, right? Whether it be wide receiver, does he have skill enough to get in out of the top end? Can I see? Am I able to see some route running? Can I see some fluidness in receiving and catching the football? Like there's got to be a way, I think, which would be awesome. This is how. Shoot, I had a Canadian kid, and I think we had a German kid come through when I was at Delaware State. It was a guy that I think he's a Canadian coach that brought a receiver and I want to say a German DN. Somehow he had connection to, and he brought them down the East Coast or down the Mid Atlantic through different camps. And just so happened we got him to come to our camp. I think they were at Temple the few days before or something, and they were coming down, and we got him to stop and come to our camp. The dang receiver is one of the best receivers I'd ever seen, right? But I had him in person, and I had him in camp, and I could physically work with him, and I could time him, and I could have him move and do different things, and I could see it with my eyes.
Yeah.
That same kid, when I left Delaware State to go to Old Dominion, I went and found him. He was about to go to University of Buffalo, and I found him. I went back and found him and tracked him down and recruited him and got him to Old Dominion. Like he was that good in my mind. He ended up having injuries and that kind of thing. But the point being is I saw him in person. Like I think there's got to be some kind of way. I don't exactly know what it is, but there's got to be some kind of way. Like here in the States, like I'm in Delaware. I'm right on the edge of, right next to Maryland. And in Maryland, there's a group that takes Maryland kids. They'll grab Maryland kids, Delaware kids, some Northern Virginia kids, and they take these kids on this bus tour, and they hit a lot of the major institutions along the East Coast. They'll go down to Virginia, they'll go down to North Carolina, Wake Forest, Duke. Now, it wears the kids out, in my opinion, but the point being is they're on college campuses, and college coaches can see them compete and move, and they can see them with their eyes. That I think that's what would help. And I know it's tough, because of the distance and all, but if there was some way to get those kids to the States and on campuses at different camps in the summertime, I think that would be huge, because all of a sudden a coach can now see the kid in person, right? And it may not be the coach that like let's say you go to Wake Forest, it may not be the Wake Forest staff that takes them. It may be the North Carolina A&T staff that's there, or the App State staff that's there, or the JMU staff that may come down, or somebody else's staff, or the Catawba or a smaller school that goes, that kid could play for us. Let's find a way. And then all of a sudden it creates that communication and that recruitment that everybody's looking for, and that connection. So that's what really needs to happen. And I know it's a tough thing. That's the part internationally that becomes tough, right? How do you get them from Australia or Europe or wherever, Japan? Because shoot, I mean, we all used to talk about it all the time. There's really good players in Japan. They've been playing football as long as we've been playing football here in the States. So, like, how do you get those kids in the States on campuses where coaches can see them? And I think that becomes the the big question mark.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple people in Europe that do that, that take, kids to do these tours and stuff, and with great success too, actually. So um, we got a kid from Melbourne who went to high school in Georgia and then transferred to Florida. He's
Okay.
actually playing quarterback.
Good.
And last year he went to the NC camp.
Okay.
So, and like he's really talented. He's physically he's really talented. He's very
Right.
gifted,
Right.
So, but look, and that's like I worked with him and sort of trying to help him sort of get ready a little bit for what high school football was, because over here I think the only thing he's played was like 5-man football and 9-man football.
Yeah.
And 9-man football, he was like, there wasn't a receiver. We just take off and we would score a touchdown.
Right.
So
Right.
gifted, as an athlete, but also very natural, strong arm, but no background in terms of the ins and outs of the game. So,
Right.
but he's doing pretty good, and he has one more year after this season. Hold on. I think this will be his last year, this coming
Okay.
season.
Okay.
So I really think that he can play college football as a quarterback.
Good.
And that's that would be
That's
very
huge.
special to have that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so the other thing is like getting him over there. And so for the guys that I work with here, like my biggest thing is like what you got to do is like you just got to become the best possible athlete.
Yeah.
Right.
You
And
do.
that's where I'm just still hoping that when you see the athlete, you go like, all right, football wise not great, but he's such a great athlete, we can teach him the game. And I mean, I guess the biggest example that we have is Sebastian Vollmer. He was 19 years old when he played for Team Europe, and Team Europe was then part of the NFL Europe, playing in a tournament before the Super Bowl. He was
Right.
19 years old. I think he was 6'5", 6'6". His body was like a swimmer, big V, but he wasn't big. He was very lean. He was athletic. He was a good swimmer, but he didn't look anything like an offensive lineman. He looked like a skinny basketball player, if you
Yeah.
ask me, right?
Yeah.
So, and then through Jeff Reinbold, he gets him to Houston, and spin it forward whatever years. He's got 4 Super Bowl rings and, blocking
Exactly.
for Tom Brady, and had a
Exactly.
spectacular career,
Exactly.
So he was a good athlete. He showed some promise, but, back then, Jeff Reinbold still had to work really, really hard to get him into Houston. And look, there's kids like that all over the world, and they're everywhere. And it's that opportunity. Like I said, like if we can make him the best possible athlete, I'm just hoping that there is a school is like, yeah, look, we got to give him 1 or 2 years, but this guy could be really good for us.
And I think too, like, the other part is big schools, the P5s now. That's hard, right? It's hard to get those guys to think outside the box that way. But when you're talking FCS and you're talking Division II, I mean, that's where kids now, more and more kids now are being found by the National Football League. We've always said it, but I think now more and more, and because of the transfer stuff, because kids are transferring down, and there's good players moving all over the place at different levels. They're finding more and more kids at the lower levels, and those are opportunities where those coaches, they know they need to find that diamond in the rough, that kid like you're talking about, that is athletic but maybe doesn't have as much experience, and they can think enough to go, all right, he could be a tight end, he could be a defensive end, he could be a linebacker, he could be a safety, and let's teach him and let's take a chance on him because he could really help our program.
For us.
Yeah. And all of a sudden this guy blows up and blossoms, and now he's playing high level ball, in the National Football League at some point. So, I think all of those become very, very important for kids to try and get in front of. We all kids are kids, right? And that's all around the world. It's the NBA, it's Major League Baseball, it's the NFL. They all want to they see the highest level of play. So when it comes to college, they want to go play at the highest level of play because that's how they see themselves getting there. And that's for them is getting them to understand that that's not the case. That you need to get in front of people who can think outside of the box and give you that opportunity, and then grow, and then just grow.
Well, going back to what you said about those camps, right? Like I actually didn't realize that other schools go to those camps to recruit or evaluate kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they just let them in and they can watch and
yeah. Typically, what happens is, let's say University of Virginia, they won't let Virginia Tech come over. They won't let. Well, they may let Old Dominion. Well, at one time they would let Old Dominion, but they'll let the smaller school, Group of Five,
okay,
1A school, and the FCS. So they'll let a Towson come in, a Richmond come in, a William and Mary, Division II schools. So they'll let those guys all come in to evaluate kids, because at the end of the day, for them, if I'm at the University of Virginia and I'm running that program, at the end of the day, I'm getting as many kids. I know who I'm recruiting. I know who's going to be at the camp that I'm recruiting. I already know that. But I do want the best kids in the state to come to my camp. And the more coaches I have from the state or surrounding areas that come to my camp to evaluate the kids, that's a selling point for the kids. Yo, look, you're going to have a bunch of eyes watching you guys. Like,
gotcha.
Come to our camp. And that's what occurs. That's what occurs.
I gotcha. Yeah, good. Look, it's one of those things in the NFL Europe. It's like all the kids, Europeans or Mexican or Japanese, they got the same genes as an American kid.
Oh yeah,
just didn't have the opportunity to play on the level that the American kids had. That's what it comes down to. So yeah.
See, I remember Noriaki Konosta, one of the fastest players. He's one of the faster players that I've coached in my career.
I tell you what, I think last year was still playing.
Are you serious?
Nori was still playing. Yeah. It's like, I mean, like, really? Yeah.
One of the fastest players I've coached.
So I was the head coach of the Australian national team for a few years. And in 2015, we played in Canton, and he was playing for Japan.
Okay.
Yeah. Nori.
Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Talented. It's all right, Coach. I think we're about an hour and a half in. I think we did really well, man.
What? That's it?
Look, as long as you're in between jobs, hopefully we can get you back and talk a little bit. Look, I'm using the first ones with you guys to sort of introduce, the coach or whoever the guest is, and then maybe go into more specific topics. Okay. And might not have to be an hour and a half, maybe 30 minutes, but we just this is the truth here too. Is like I started interviewing people for my book, and I started a podcast, and really the ultimate thing about all of this is that it's for me to get better. It's like, I want to learn. I want to, and that's really, that's my driving force with everything I do. Every day I want to get better at something, Absolutely. So, and then, that would be great if we could just do it again,
that'd be great.
And I don't know, I hope it's the same for you, but it is. It was, if it was 20 years ago, it felt like it was yesterday talking to you right now.
How about it, right?
Yeah, that's great. Face to face, it definitely had. Well, not 20, like 2007. I guess it's 16 years, but it's 16 years. I can't believe it.
It's been a while.
But it was awesome, and Oh, now do you have, maybe just to finish off here, do you have any interviews lined up or
I got some I got a couple things working.
yeah?
We'll see it. A
Mm.
couple things still in the profession and a couple things outside of the profession. It's just
All right.
from the level I was at, everything's full now. It's just a bad time. So,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
looking at some lower level things, and
Timing
I love
wise.
coaching, man. So,
Mm.
we'll figure it out from that standpoint. But
Okay. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we're
But maybe we just got to find a spot somewhere in Europe and go back to Europe together, huh?
Hey, I'm look, trust me, I'm about to hit Patrick at some point here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since now I know he's the commissioner, I'm about to hit him up.
Well, I think he's not in charge of finding coaches, I guess. But I
Man,
obviously I invited him as well, and he's like I'm talking to him hopefully in April sometime. So
awesome, awesome,
um,
awesome.
we'll see if we can work something out, eh?
That'd be great.
All right. So thanks for your time, bud, and we'll talk soon again, eh?
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself.
Bye.
We'll talk soon.